On June 30th, 1908, 80 million trees fell in a Siberian forest, and nobody heard it coming because the official explanation doesn't add up. The conventional story goes like this. A comet or meteor struck Earth's atmosphere above a remote region called Tunguska, detonated midair, and flattened the forest below. Clean, tidy, teachable. But here's what troubles the skeptic's eye. If that were true, we should have found meteorite fragments. Tons of them. Instead, a century later, we're still haggling over what actually happened. Let's start with what we know for certain. On that June morning, witnesses reported a column of flame rising above the horizon. Herds of reindeer, thousands of them, were incinerated where they stood. The blast wave reached villages over 40 miles away. Scientists estimate the explosion released energy equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT. That's roughly 1,000 Hiroshima bombs. So the event itself isn't in question. What is in question is the culprit. The comet hypothesis has ruled textbooks for over a century. A celestial projectile enters the atmosphere, friction heats it to thousands of degrees, pressure builds, and kaboom, airburst. The physics works, the math works. But evidence, that's where the story fractures. Expeditions to the impact zone found no crater, no meteorite, no chunks of cosmic material buried in the soil. You'd expect debris. You'd expect fragments. Instead, researchers uncovered flattened trees with their roots still intact, meaning they were knocked down horizontally, not vaporized. That's consistent with an airburst, yes, but it's also consistent with other scenarios. Enter the alternative claims. Some researchers have proposed a black hole. Hear me out, a micro-black hole the size of a grain of sand passes through Earth, enters the atmosphere over Siberia, collides with a nucleus, and the resulting annihilation releases catastrophic energy. Theoretically possible. In the realm of theoretical physics, yes, plausible. That's where skepticism earns its keep. The problem is this. A black hole passing through Earth would leave evidence elsewhere. It would create detectable gravitational anomalies, radiation signatures, or secondary impacts. We found none. The black hole theory is mathematically elegant but empirically hollow. It's the kind of hypothesis that sounds plausible until you ask for the receipts. Then there's the antimatter argument. A collision between matter and antimatter would annihilate both, releasing pure energy with no residue, no fragments, no crater. It fits the evidence like a glove. But antimatter is vanishingly rare in our solar system. The odds of antimatter reaching Earth and detonating over Tunguska, we're talking lottery ticket territory. A more terrestrial explanation has also surfaced. A comet composed almost entirely of ice. No rock, no metal, just frozen water. When it detonates in the upper atmosphere, it vaporizes completely, leaving behind water vapor and nothing else. The physics holds. The chemistry holds. But we have no comet fragments, no trace of unusual water isotopes in the region. So again, plausible but unproven. Here's where the courtroom instinct kicks in. Each theory, comet, black hole, antimatter, ice projectile, can explain the observable facts, but none can prove itself uniquely. In law, that's called reasonable doubt. In science, it's called underdetermined evidence. We have multiple explanations, all consistent with what we see, and no smoking gun to eliminate the others. The comet theory remains the default because it requires the fewest exotic assumptions. It invokes physics we understand. It assumes nothing supernatural or theoretical. Occam's razor, the principle that simpler explanations are usually correct, favors the comet. But Occam's razor is a tool, not a truth detector. It's a heuristic, not a guarantee. What does the evidence actually tell us? An object of immense energy struck the atmosphere above Tunguska. It detonated with force enough to level a forest the size of a small country. It left no crater, no meteorite, no identifiable fragments. Those are the facts. Everything else is speculation dressed up as science. So was it a comet? Probably. The comet hypothesis has survived because it's the most parsimonious explanation, but probably isn't certainty. And in a channel dedicated to exposing how easily we accept incomplete stories, Tunguska is a reminder. Even science can mistake the most convincing narrative for the actual truth. The real con isn't perpetrated by any one person or entity. It's perpetrated by the human tendency to settle on the most comfortable explanation and call it solved. We did that with Tunguska. We wrapped it in the comet narrative and moved on. And a century later, the forest still hasn't given up its secret. Subscribe, there's a new unsolved case every week. and each one reveals how easily the official story can obscure the actual truth. Subscribe, there's a new unsolved case every week, and each one reveals how easily the official story can obscure the actual truth.